They chained her wrists with iron and dragged her to the cliff's edge, while the storm screamed around them. Maravane, the shifter who smelled of salt water instead of pine, didn't fight. She'd stopped fighting the moment Alpha Rylan Drax looked at her with disgust and said those three words that shattered everything. I reject you. Now, as the pack circled her like wolves around wounded prey, as the ocean below roared its ancient fury, Mara stood at the precipice between death and something far stranger. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the deep had been waiting for her all along. Stay until the end to see how the outcast becomes the queen. Like this video if you believe in second chances, and comment what city you're watching from. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, turning the pack's ceremonial grounds into a churning mess of mud and broken pine needles. Mara stood at the edge of the gathering, wrapped in a cloak that did nothing to stop the cold from seeping into her bones. Around her, wolves in human form pressed close together, their bodies radiating warmth, their scents mingling into that familiar pack smell, earth and fur and wild things. She didn't smell like them. She never had. Move aside, someone muttered, shoving past her. The woman, Kara, one of Ryland's inner circle, wrinkled her nose as if Mara had rolled in something dead. God, you reek. Mara said nothing. What was there to say? She'd heard it 1,000 times. While every other shifter in the Drax pack carried the scent of the forest, of soil and cedar and morning dew, Mara smelled like the ocean. Salt and brine and something deeper, colder, like the water that exists miles below the surface where light never reaches. Her mother had smelled the same way, and her mother had died alone, rejected by the pack, driven into the wild when Mara was barely old enough to remember her face. Tonight, whispered her cousin Senna, pressing close enough that Mara could feel her breath against her ear. Tonight, everything changes. The calling happens during tonight's moon. The calling. The sacred ritual where unmated wolves found their destined pairs, where the bonds that would define packs for generations were forged. Mara had spent 18 years as an outsider, 18 years of sideways glances and whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. But the calling didn't care about social standing. It didn't care if you smelled wrong or if your eyes were too blue or if you'd never quite fit in. The calling was fate, pure and undeniable. What if no one? Mara started. Someone will, Senna interrupted fiercely. The pull doesn't lie. Someone out there is meant for you. Thunder rolled across the sky, and the first drummers began their rhythm, deep, primal beats that matched the pulse in Mara's chest. She pulled her cloak tighter and moved with the crowd toward the center of the grounds, where a massive bonfire was being lit despite the rain. The flames caught and roared upward, defying the storm. Alpha. Ryland Drax emerged from the pack house, and the crowd fell silent. He was everything an alpha should be, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the kind of confidence that came from never once doubting your place in the world. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing sharp features and eyes that seemed to see straight through anyone who looked at him. At 25, he was the youngest alpha the Drax pack had seen in a century, and the strongest. Mara had never spoken directly to him. Why would she? Alphas didn't concern themselves with outcasts. Tonight, Ryland's voice cut through the rain and the drum beats. We honor the oldest tradition of our kind. The calling will show us the bonds that have always existed, waiting to be discovered. When you feel the pull, don't fight it. The wild knows what we need better than we do. He moved to the fire, and one by one, the unmated wolves began to circle it. Mara hung back, but Senna grabbed her arm. Go, she hissed. You have as much right as anyone. Mara's legs felt like stone, but she forced herself forward. She joined the circle, acutely aware of the space that opened around her, the way people shifted away. The drumbeat intensified. The fire roared higher, and then she felt it. A pull. Not gentle, not subtle. A hook buried in her chest, dragging her forward with such force that she gasped. Her head snapped up, eyes scanning the circle, and Ryland was staring at her. No, not staring. Being pulled, just like she was. His expression was confusion, then shock, then something that might have been horror. The entire pack was watching as the alpha and the outcast moved toward each other, drawn by a force neither could resist. No, Ryland said, but his feet kept moving. This isn't... Mara's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might burst. This couldn't be happening. The Alpha. Fate had bound her to the Alpha. They stopped inches apart. The pull was so strong now that Mara's skin felt like it was on fire. Every instinct screamed at her to reach out, to touch him, to complete the bond. Around them, the pack had gone absolutely silent. Ryland's nostrils flared, he inhaled, and Mara watched his face transform. Disgust. Pure, undiluted disgust. "You smell like death," he said quietly, "like something drowned and rotting." The words hit harder than a fist. Mara stepped back, but the pull made it agony to move away. She started. "I reject you," Ryland said, louder now. "I reject this bond. I reject you as my mate." The world tilted. Rejection wasn't common. The bonds were sacred, ordained by forces older than pack law. But it was possible. And when it happened, it destroyed the rejected mate from the inside out. Mara felt the bond begin to tear. It was like having her ribs pried open, her heart exposed and crushed. She made a sound, not quite a scream, more like the noise a wounded animal makes when it knows death is coming. "Ryland," someone said. His second, maybe. "You can't." "I can and I am." Ryland's voice was steel. "I am Alpha of this pack, and I will not be bound to something that reeks of the ocean's grave. I will not tie my bloodline to whatever aberration produced her." Aberration. The word echoed in Mara's skull. She was on her knees now, though she didn't remember falling. The pain was everything. It was all she was. "Get her out of my sight," Ryland said, turning away. "Get her away from the fire." Hands grabbed Mara, rough, uncaring hands. They dragged her backward, away from the warmth, away from the pack. She couldn't fight, couldn't breathe. The bond was still tearing, slowly, deliberately, and every second was an eternity of agony. They threw her in the mud beyond the circle. The rain pounded down, mixing with tears she didn't remember crying. "Freak," someone spat. "Always knew she was cursed. Should have been drowned at birth, like her mother should have been." The voices blurred together. Mara curled into herself, shaking, waiting for the pain to stop. It didn't stop. It just kept tearing, kept ripping, until she was sure there was nothing left inside her but raw, bleeding emptiness. She didn't know how long she lay there. Hours, maybe. The ceremony continued without her. She could hear the happy shouts as other bonds formed, as mates found each other and celebrated. Normal wolves. Wolves who belonged. When she finally managed to stand, the grounds were nearly empty. The fire had burned down to embers. Her legs shook with every step as she made her way back toward the small cabin she shared with Senna and two other low-ranking females. Senna was waiting on the porch, her face pale. "Mara," she breathed. "Oh God, Mara, your eyes." "Don't," Mara croaked. Her voice sounded like gravel. "Don't look at me." But she caught her reflection in the window as she stumbled past. Her eyes, normally a clear blue-green, had turned dark. Storm dark. Ocean dark. And there was something else. A faint, silvery sheen to her skin that hadn't been there before. The rejection was changing her, or maybe it was revealing what had always been there, hidden beneath the desperate hope of belonging. She made it to her room before collapsing. Senna tried to follow, but Mara locked the door. She couldn't bear to be looked at, to be pitied. She crawled into bed and pulled the thin blanket over her head, shaking so hard her teeth rattled. The storm outside intensified. Wind howled around the cabin, strong enough to rattle the shutters. Somewhere in the pack house, she could hear celebrating, laughter, music, the sound of people who had found what they were looking for. Mara pressed her face into the pillow and wished, for the first time in her life, that she could simply stop existing. The storm didn't break. If anything, it got worse. By morning, the wind was tearing shingles off roofs. Trees that had stood for 100 years were toppling. The river that ran through pack territory swelled beyond its banks, flooding the lower fields. And the ocean was a roaring, frothing monster, sending waves crashing against the cliffs with enough force to shake the ground. Mara watched it from her window, hollow-eyed and empty. She hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. The pain of the rejection had settled into a constant, gnawing ache that lived in her chest and refused to let her rest. Someone was pounding on the cabin door. "Mara Vane!" The voice was male, hard. "Alpha calls for you. Now." She didn't want to go. Every instinct told her that nothing good waited for her with the pack. but refusing an alpha's summons was unthinkable. She dragged herself up, pulled on the same mud-stained clothes from the night before, and opened her bedroom door. Senna was standing in the main room, her face frightened. "Don't go," she whispered. "Mara, please, something's wrong." "I have to." The guard at the door, Marcus, one of Ryland's enforcers, grabbed Mara's arm hard enough to bruise and hauled her outside. The storm hit her like a physical blow. Rain drove sideways, and the wind was strong enough that she had to lean into it to avoid being knocked down. The pack house loomed ahead, and as they got closer, Mara saw the crowd. Dozens of wolves, all gathered in the main hall, all staring at her as Marcus dragged her inside. Ryland stood at the head of the room, his face carved from stone. "The storm," he said without preamble, "started the moment I rejected you." Mara's mouth went dry. Around the room, she saw faces twisted with fear and anger. The damage was worse than she'd realized. One entire wing of the pack house had lost its roof. 3 wolves had been injured by falling debris. The flooding had destroyed a month's worth of stored food. "The elders say it's a sign," Ryland continued. His voice was cold, detached, like he was discussing a problem with livestock rather than a person. "They say the ocean is angry, that rejecting you has brought its curse down on us." "That's insane," Mara managed. I can't control the weather. Can't you?" The question came from Elder Thorn, a wizened old wolf who'd been alive longer than anyone could remember. He stepped forward, his milky eyes fixed on Mara. "Your mother could. Before we drove her out. Before she drowned herself in those same waters." The room erupted in murmurs. Mara's head spun. "My mother was just... She was sick. She was a sea-touched abomination," Thorn spat. "And you're the same. Look at you. Look at your eyes, girl. Look at what you're becoming." Mara didn't need to look. She could feel it. The changes were accelerating. Her skin had that silvery sheen even in the dim light. When she touched her neck, she could feel something beneath the surface. Ridges, almost, like gills trying to form. "This is your fault," someone shouted from the crowd. "You brought this on us. We're going to lose everything because of her. The ocean wants her back." Ryland raised his hand and the crowd fell silent. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured, the voice of an alpha who'd already made his decision. "Then we give her back." The words hung in the air for a heartbeat. 2. Then their meaning sank in, and Mara's legs went weak. "No," she whispered. "No, please." "You're not one of us," Ryland said, and there was something almost like regret in his eyes. Almost. "You never have been. And now you're a threat to everyone here. The ocean calls for you, Mara Vane. We're simply answering." Marcus grabbed her again, and this time he wasn't alone. 2 other enforcers seized her arms. Mara tried to shift, tried to call on her wolf, but the rejection had broken something fundamental inside her. Her wolf was gone. Unreachable. "Please," she begged, hating how small her voice sounded. "Please, I'll leave. I'll go far away. Just don't." "The ocean," Elder Thorn intoned, "demands a sacrifice. Demands its daughter returned." They dragged her toward the door. The crowd parted and Mara saw their faces. Not all of them looked happy about this. Some looked sick, scared. But none of them stepped forward. None of them said stop. Senna's face flashed in the crowd, tears streaming down her cheeks. But Marcus's brother held her back when she tried to rush forward. Outside, the storm was apocalyptic. The guards had to fight against the wind with every step as they hauled Mara toward the cliffs. She could see the ocean below, black and raging, waves the size of houses smashing against the rocks. "This is murder," she screamed, but the wind tore her words away. They reached the cliff's edge. Below, the ocean roared its hunger. Ryland was there. He'd followed, his hair whipping around his face, his eyes hard. "Do you have any last words?" he asked. A formality. A kindness he didn't owe her. Mara looked at him. This man who was supposed to be her mate, her other half, the one the universe itself had chosen for her, and felt something crack inside her chest. Not pain this time, something colder, harder. "I hope," she said, her voice barely audible over the storm, "that you remember this moment. I hope it haunts you for the rest of your miserable life." Something flickered in Ryland's expression. Then it was gone. He nodded to the enforcers. They threw her over the edge. For a brief, weightless moment, Mara was flying. The storm raged around her, rain and wind and the screaming of her own voice. Then the ocean rose up to meet her, and she plunged into water so cold it stopped her heart. The impact shattered her. She felt ribs crack, felt the air driven from her lungs. The ocean closed over her head, and she sank like a stone, pulled down by currents that felt almost alive, almost purposeful. Down, down, down into the crushing dark. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred. This was it, then. This was how she died, drowned like her mother, cast out by the pack, rejected by fate itself. She stopped struggling. What was the point? There was nothing left to fight for. The darkness pressed in from all sides. And then, in that darkness, something opened its eyes. They were massive, ancient, the eyes of something that had existed long before the first wolf learned to shift, before the first human learned to fear the deep. They were the color of bioluminescence, that eerie blue-green glow that exists only in the deepest trenches where nightmares are born. The eyes saw her, and then a voice, not spoken, but felt, reverberating through the water and into her very bones, said, "Finally, you've come home." Massive hands, webbed and powerful, reached out and caught her before she could sink any further. They were gentle, impossibly so for their size. "Sleep now, little tideborn. When you wake, you will be reborn." Mara wanted to fight, wanted to scream, but the cold and the pain and the rejection had taken everything from her. She let the darkness take her, let those ancient hands pull her deeper. Her last conscious thought was that drowning felt almost peaceful. Almost. Warmed. She woke to pressure. Not the crushing pressure of the deep, though she could feel that too pressing against every inch of her skin, but a different kind. The pressure of something fundamental changing inside her body. She tried to scream, but water rushed into her mouth, and she choked. No, wait. She wasn't choking. The water was going in, but it didn't burn. Didn't drown. It flowed through her lungs like air, rich with oxygen, tasting of salt and minerals and things she had no names for. Mara's eyes snapped open. She was in a cavern. No, not a cavern, a palace. The walls were living coral, glowing with soft phosphorescence. The floor was white sand that sparkled like crushed diamonds. And everywhere, everywhere, there was water. Not flooding the space, but existing within it, as if air and ocean had learned to coexist in this impossible place. "Easy," a voice rumbled. "The transformation is almost complete, but you must stay calm." Mara turned her head and froze. The being sitting beside her was the most beautiful and terrifying thing she'd ever seen. He was shaped like a man, but wrong, in ways her mind struggled to categorize. Too tall, too fluid. His skin was the deep blue-black of ocean trenches, marked with patterns that glowed like constellations. His hair, if it could be called that, flowed around his head like ink in water. His eyes were those same bioluminescent orbs she'd seen in the dark. Kaelion. She didn't know how she knew his name, but she did. It was written in every drop of water around her, in every beat of her changing heart. "What?" Her voice sounded wrong, layered with harmonics that shouldn't exist. "What did you do to me?" "I gave you what was always yours." Kaelion reached out, and his webbed fingers brushed her cheek with surprising tenderness. "I gave you back to the sea." Mara looked down at herself and almost screamed. Her skin had changed. The silvery sheen was now fully realized, scales, delicate and opalescent, covering her arms, her legs, probably her entire body. When she flexed her fingers, she saw webbing between them. And her legs, they were fused, transformed, a tail, powerful and sleek, covered in scales that shifted from silver to deep blue, depending on how the light hit them. "No," she whispered. "No, this isn't... I'm not... You are mine now," Kaelion said, and there was no cruelty in it, just absolute certainty. The bond that was broken above has been replaced. You are no longer pack. You are ocean. You are deep. You are eternal. "I didn't want this." "You wanted to die." Kaelion's voice was patient, like he was explaining something to a child. "I gave you something better. I gave you purpose, power, a place where you will never be rejected again." Mara wanted to argue, wanted to rage, but exhaustion pulled at her. The transformation had taken everything. She slumped back against the coral wall, her new tail moving sluggishly. "Why?" she managed. "Why me?" "Because you were always meant to be here." Kalion settled beside her, his massive form somehow graceful. "Your mother was mine as well once, before fear drove her back to land, before she tried to deny what she was. You have her gift, her strength, but you will not make her mistakes." "She killed herself." "She suffocated," Kalion corrected gently. "She tried to live on land when her soul belonged to the water. It drove her mad. But you will have both, land and sea, human and other. You will be the bridge between worlds." Mara's head was spinning. This couldn't be real. None of this could be real. But the gills on her neck, she could feel them now, opening and closing, filtering water, were very real. The tail was real. The power humming through her veins, cold and ancient and vast, was real. "The pack," she said suddenly. "The storm will end when I will it." Kalion's smile showed too many teeth. "When you will it. The surface world rejected you, little tideborn. Do you truly care if they suffer for it?" Mara thought of Ryland's disgusted face, the hands that had thrown her over the cliff, the crowd that had watched and done nothing. "No," she whispered. "I don't." "Good." Kalion stood, extending his hand. "Then rest now. Heal. Let the ocean teach you what you are. And when you're ready," his smile widened, "we'll show them exactly what they threw away." The palace of coral and bioluminescent stone became Mara's prison and sanctuary both. Days blurred into each other down here. Or maybe there were no days at all, just the eternal twilight of the deep where time moved differently, slower, like the ancient currents that carved the ocean floor. Kalion was patient, terrifyingly so. He didn't force her to do anything, didn't chain her or threaten her. He simply existed beside her, a constant presence that was somehow both comforting and suffocating. He taught her to move through the water with her new body, to use the powerful tail that had replaced her legs. At first, Mara fought it, tried to reject what she'd become the same way Ryland had rejected her. But the ocean didn't care about her resistance. It pulled at her, whispered to her, sang to her in languages she shouldn't understand but somehow did. And slowly, grudgingly, she began to listen. "You're fighting yourself," Kalion said one day. Or night, she couldn't tell anymore. They were in what he called the teaching pools, shallow basins where the water was warmer, easier. "The transformation is complete. Your body knows what it is. Your mind needs to catch up." Mara floated on her back, staring up at the cathedral ceiling of living coral above them. "My mind knows I'm a freak. That's what it knows." "They called you a freak." Kalion's voice was gentle but firm. "The wolves who threw you away. Do their opinions still matter so much?" "Yes," Mara said honestly, then quieter. "No, I don't know." She thought about Ryland constantly, couldn't stop herself. The bond might be broken, but the memory of it haunted her like a phantom limb. Sometimes she woke up reaching for something that wasn't there, feeling the echo of what could have been. "He was supposed to be mine," she whispered. "The universe chose him for me." "The universe," Kalion said, "makes mistakes." He moved through the water until he was beside her, his massive form somehow graceful. Up close, Mara could see the patterns on his skin shifting, moving like living tattoos. They were beautiful in an alien way that made her chest ache. Or perhaps, he continued, the universe knew exactly what it was doing when it broke that bond. Perhaps it was clearing the way for something better. "Better?" Mara laughed, and it came out bitter. "I'm a fish." "You're a queen." The word hung between them. Mara turned to look at him and found those bioluminescent eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I don't want to be a queen." "What do you want, Mara Vane?" It was the first time he'd used her full name. Something about it made her throat tight. What did she want? A week ago, or a month, she'd lost track. She would have said she wanted to belong, to be accepted, to be normal. Now, "I want them to hurt," she said, and the honesty of it shocked her. "I want them to feel what I felt." Kalion's smile was terrible and beautiful. "Then let's give you the tools to make that happen." The training began in earnest after that. Kalion taught her to command the water itself. It started small, making ripples, creating currents. But Mara discovered she had an affinity for it that even Kalion seemed surprised by. Within days, she could pull water from the air, could sense every living thing in the ocean for miles around. Within weeks, she could call storms. Your mother could do this too, Kalion told her, as she practiced raising waves in the deep pools. But she was afraid of her power. She tried to suppress it, to be small enough that the wolves would accept her. How did you know my mother? She came to me the same way you did. Rejected, broken, pregnant with you. Kalion's expression turned distant. I offered her the same choice. She refused. Went back to land, tried to raise you among the wolves. It killed her in the end. Mara let the wave she'd been building collapse. She drowned herself in the ocean. She drowned herself trying to return to me. To beg me to take you when the pack turned on her. Kalion's voice was soft, sad. I found her body washed up on the rocks. I couldn't save her. But I swore I would watch over you, wait for you. So this was always going to happen, me ending up here. Yes. The simple certainty in his voice should have angered her. Instead, Mara felt something like relief. At least someone had wanted her. Even if it was this ancient creature of the deep, at least someone had been waiting. What am I to you? She asked. Really? Kalion was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight that made the water around them vibrate. You are my mate, my equal, the tide to my current. I have existed for millennia, Maravane, alone in these depths. I have watched civilizations rise and fall, have seen ships sink and treasures lost and empires crumble into the sand. And in all that time I have never found another like me, until your bloodline was born. He moved closer, and Mara found she couldn't look away from those glowing eyes. Your great-great-grandmother was the first. She carried the marker, the ability to transform, to bridge land and sea. Each generation since has carried it, though diluted. Your mother's power was strong. Yours is stronger still. You are what I have been waiting for, the one who can truly stand beside me. I didn't choose this. Neither did I. But here we are. Mara wanted to argue, wanted to rail against fate and destiny and ancient beings who made decisions for her. But what was the point? The pack had thrown her away. Her mate had rejected her. She had nowhere else to go, and if she was being honest with herself, really brutally honest, the power felt good. It felt right. Teach me more, she said finally. Teach me everything. Kalion's smile could have lit the darkest trench. As you wish, my queen. The changes weren't just physical anymore. Mara could feel herself shifting in deeper ways, fundamental ways. Her thoughts moved differently now, flowed like currents rather than racing in the chaotic patterns she'd known all her life. Time felt elastic. The crushing pressure of the deep felt like home. And the rage, the burning, bitter rage at what had been done to her, that had settled into something cold and patient. Kalion took her hunting, not for food, though they did that too, but hunting in the way apex predators hunt, for sport, for practice, for the pure joy of being the thing that other things fear. They swam through kelp forests and over hydrothermal vents. Mara learned to use echolocation, to sense prey through water and darkness. She learned that she could command sea creatures the way Kalion could, bending them to her will with nothing more than a thought. You're a natural, Kalion said as Mara directed a school of barracuda through an intricate pattern. Your mother struggled with this for years. Maybe I'm just angrier than she was. Anger is useful, but you'll need more than anger to rule. I don't want to rule anything. Kalion gave her a look that said he knew she was lying. Maybe she was. The idea of power, real power, was starting to appeal to her in ways that should have been frightening. They were resting in a grove of giant kelp when Kalion suddenly went still, his head tilted, listening to something Mara couldn't hear. What is it? She asked. Visitors, at the surface. His smile turned sharp. Your old pack, if I'm not mistaken. Mara's heart stuttered. What? Why would they? Come, let me show you. He took her hand, his palm cool and webbed against hers, and they shot upward through the water. They moved impossibly fast, Kalion controlling the currents to propel them. Mara's stomach lurched at the speed, but she didn't tell him to slow down. They surfaced near the cliffs, the same cliffs they'd thrown her from. It was twilight. The storm that had raged for weeks had finally broken, leaving behind a gray, exhausted sky. And there, on the cliff's edge, stood a group of wolves in human form. Mara recognized them immediately. Marcus, Elder Thorn, Kara, and at the center, looking haggard and desperate, Rylan. "Stay low," Kalian murmured. "They can't see us yet. Watch." Mara submerged until only her eyes were above water. The waves were still rough, slapping against the rocks, but nothing like the apocalyptic fury of before. She could hear the wolves talking, their voices carrying over the water. "This is insane," Marcus was saying. "She's dead. Been dead for over a month. The storm stopped the day after Rylan cut himself off. The day she went into the water. "Coincidence," Kara said, but she didn't sound convinced. Elder Thorn stepped forward, leaning heavily on a gnarled walking stick. "The ocean has taken what was owed. The daughter returned. But the damage is done, Alpha. 3 dead from the flooding, half our stored food lost. The winter will be brutal. So we rebuild," Rylan said, but there was no strength in his voice. He looked like he'd aged years in weeks, dark circles under his eyes, shoulders slumped. "We've survived worse." "Have we?" Thorn turned to face him. "In my lifetime, I've seen many alphas. Strong ones, weak ones, but I've never seen one reject a true mate, never seen one kill what the universe itself chose for him." "I didn't kill her, You threw her into the ocean during a storm," Marcus said flatly. "What did you think would happen?" Rylan flinched like he'd been struck. "She was cursed. She was bringing disaster on all of us." "Or maybe," Kara said quietly, "we brought disaster on ourselves." They were all staring at Rylan now, the great alpha, diminished, doubted. "I did what had to be done," Rylan said, but he didn't sound certain anymore. "For the pack. I did it for the pack." "Did you?" Thorn's voice was soft, dangerous. "Or did you do it because you were afraid? Afraid of what she was? Of what binding yourself to her might mean?" Rylan's hands clenched into fists. "I am not afraid of—" "Then why do you come here every night?" The old wolf gestured at the cliff's edge. "Why do you stand where you killed her and stare at the water like you're waiting for something?" Mara's breath caught. "Every night?" "I don't—" Rylan started, then seemed to deflate. "I see her sometimes. In dreams. She's calling to me from the water." "Guilt," Thorn said. "Your wolf knows what you did was wrong. It's trying to tell you." "My wolf," Rylan said through gritted teeth, "has been silent since that night. I can barely shift anymore. It's like he's punishing me." "Good," Mara thought viciously. "Good." But there was something else rising in her chest, something that felt uncomfortably like satisfaction. He was suffering. They all were. And she was the cause. Beside her, Kalian's eyes gleamed. "Now," he whispered, "show them what they threw away." "What? No, I can't." "You can. You're ready." His hand found hers underwater. "Make them see you. Make them understand their mistake." Mara's heart was pounding. Part of her wanted to sink back down into the safe darkness. But a larger part. The part that remembered every insult, every cruel word, every moment of being treated like she was less, wanted exactly what Kalian was offering. She wanted them to see. Slowly, deliberately, Mara rose from the water. The transformation had given her more than a tail. Her hair, once brown and ordinary, now flowed like living water around her shoulders. The scales that covered her body caught the dying light and threw it back in rainbow patterns. And her eyes glowed with that same bioluminescent power that marked Kalian. She looked like a nightmare, like a legend, like something that absolutely did not belong in the world of men and wolves. Marcus saw her first. His mouth fell open, and the color drained from his face. "What?" he breathed. "The hell is that?" The others turned. Kara screamed. Elder Thorn stumbled backward, his walking stick clattering on the rocks. And Rylan stared at her like his world was ending. "Mara?" His voice cracked on her name. She smiled, showing teeth that were sharper than they used to be. "Hello, Alpha." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the waves seemed to quiet, as if the ocean itself was holding its breath. "You're alive," Rylan whispered. "You're... What are you?" What am I? Mara's laugh was cold. I'm what you made me, what you threw away. She lifted one hand from the water, and the ocean responded. A wave rose behind her, towering, controlled. She held it there, suspended, a demonstration of power that made the wolves on the cliff step back in fear. You called me cursed, she continued, called me an aberration, threw me to my death because I wasn't what you wanted. Well, here I am, still alive, stronger than any of you could ever be. Mara, please. Raylan took a step toward the cliff's edge. I didn't know. You knew exactly what you were doing. The wave behind her grew larger. You chose your precious pack over what fate gave you. You chose fear over everything else. How's that working out for you? The storm, Marcus started. Was me, Mara finished, was mine. Every wave that destroyed your homes, every drop of rain that ruined your food, all mine. Because I was angry, because I was hurt, because you tried to kill me. We can fix this, Ryland said desperately. He was fully at the edge now, hands outstretched like he could somehow reach her. The bond, maybe we can repair it. The bond is dead, Ryland. You killed it. You rejected me, remember? Mara felt Kalian surface beside her, his massive form making the wolves gasp. I found someone who actually wanted me, who saw what I was and chose me anyway. Kalian's arm slid around her waist, possessive and proud. She is mine now, wolf, queen of the deep. You had your chance, and you destroyed it. No. Raylan's voice was raw. No, Mara, you don't understand. The rejection, I felt it die too. I've been suffering? Mara's smile was vicious. Good. Now you know what it feels like. I'm sorry. The words burst from Rylan like a dam breaking. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I was scared and stupid and wrong. Do you know what I was doing when you threw me over this cliff? Mara's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. I was praying you'd come to your senses, that you'd reach out and pull me back, that somehow, despite everything, you'd choose me. Tears were streaming down Ryland's face now. Mara, you didn't. You watched me fall, and now you want forgiveness? She let the wave crash behind her, sending spray high enough to reach the cliff. I don't forgive you. I don't forgive any of you. What do you want? Elder Thorn asked. He'd regained some composure, though his face was still pale. Revenge. To destroy us. Mara considered that. Part of her wanted exactly that. Wanted to pull them all into the water and watch them drown. But Kalian's presence beside her was a reminder. She didn't need to destroy them quickly. She could take her time. I want you to live with what you did, she said finally. I want you to remember every single day that you threw away something precious, something you'll never get back. The ocean protected me when you wouldn't, and now it's mine to command. She raised both hands and the water responded. Waves began to build again, not as violent as the storm had been, but enough to make the point. The cliff shook beneath the wolves' feet. Every time it storms, Mara said, every time the waves crash a little too high, every time your fishing boats come back empty, remember that you did this. You created this. And if I ever decide I'm done being merciful, I'll wipe you off this coast like you never existed. Mara, please. Raylan was on his knees now, broken. I can't. My wolf won't. I haven't been able to fully shift since you broke the bond? Mara's eyes narrowed. That's what happens when you reject your true mate, Alpha. Your wolf knows what you are. A killer. A coward. Why would it want to share a body with that? The words hit like physical blows. Rylan crumpled, his hands covering his face. Around him, his pack stood frozen, too terrified to move. Kalian leaned close to Mara's ear. Enough, he murmured. Let them stew in their fear. We have better things to do than waste time on broken wolves. He was right, but Mara couldn't quite pull herself away. Some terrible wounded part of her wanted to stay, wanted to watch them suffer just a little longer. Then she saw Senna. Her cousin had pushed through the crowd, her face streaked with tears. Mara, she called out, voice shaking. Mara, I'm sorry. I tried to stop them. I swear I tried. I know, Mara said, and some of the ice in her voice melted. You were the only one who tried. Come back, Senna begged. Please, we need you. The pack is falling apart. That's not my problem anymore. But I'm not one of you. Mara gestured at herself, at the tail and scales and glowing eyes. I never was. You all made that very clear. I'm something else now, something better. She let Kalion pull her back under the water. The last thing she saw before the waves closed over her head was Ryland's face, destroyed, desperate, reaching for something he could never have again. They descended in silence. Mara's heart was pounding, adrenaline making her shake. She'd done it. She'd faced them, shown them what they'd lost. So why did she still feel so empty? You're merciful, Kalion said as they swam deeper. I would have killed them all. Maybe I should have. No. He caught her hand, stopping their descent. You did exactly right. Death is quick, brief. What you gave them is so much better, a lifetime of regret. Mara looked up toward the distant surface, now just a dim glow far above. His wolf won't shift. What does that mean? It means the rejection damaged him as much as it did you, perhaps more. Kalion's expression was thoughtful. A shifter who can't shift eventually loses themselves. The human and wolf sides need each other, separated for too long. They die. Eventually. Good, Mara thought again, but this time it felt hollow. They returned to the Coral Palace, and Mara found she couldn't settle. She swam restlessly through the halls, her thoughts churning like storm currents. She'd wanted them to suffer, had dreamed of making them pay. And now that she'd seen Ryland broken, seen the pack terrified, she thought she'd feel satisfied. Instead, she just felt tired. You're thinking too much, Kalion said, finding her in one of the upper chambers. I can hear it from 3 rooms away. How do you stop caring? Mara asked. They hurt me, tried to kill me. I should hate them. I do hate them. So why does it still hurt? Kalion settled beside her, his presence solid and strangely comforting. Because you're not like me yet. I've had millennia to let go of the surface world, to stop caring about the brief, brutal lives of land creatures. You've had weeks. I don't want to care. Then don't. He turned her to face him, his glowing eyes serious. They threw you away, Mara. You owe them nothing, not mercy, not forgiveness, certainly not your grief. Let them go. Be what you are now. Be mine. The word hung between them, weighted with meaning. Mara had been so focused on what she'd lost that she hadn't really looked at what she'd gained. Kalion was offering her everything, power, belonging, a place where she fit. All she had to do was stop looking back. Teach me to stop caring, she whispered. Kalion's smile was slow and dangerous. With pleasure. But that night, while Kalion slept in the deep chambers, or did whatever ancient beings did that passed for sleep, Mara swam to the highest point of the palace, a balcony of sorts, where the water was thin enough that she could almost see the stars through the waves above. She thought about Ryland, about the look on his face when he'd seen her. She thought about her mother who'd tried to live in both worlds and been destroyed by the attempt. And she thought about herself, trapped between vengeance and mercy, between letting go and holding on. Somewhere far above, the surface world continued. The pack continued. Ryland continued. And down here in the dark, Mara was building something new. She just wasn't sure yet if it was a kingdom or a tomb. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. You said Part 3. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ. Nội trực tiếp từ câu cuối Part 2, không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện. Part 3. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ. Nội trực tiếp từ câu cuối Part 2, không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện. Giữ ngôi kế thứ 3, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, rộng văn giàu cảm xúc, hội thoại chiếm khoảng 20 đến 25%. Xung đột leo thang mạnh, môi trường hoặc cộng đồng trở nên nguy hiểm hơn, quyết định táo bạo của nhân vật chính dẫn đến biến cố lớn. Phần này phải chứa cú twist lớn thay đổi hoàn toàn cục diện hoặc thân phận nhân vật. Duy trì chủ đề sinh tồn, môi trường khắc nghiệt và sự đối đầu giữa nhân vật với cộng đồng hoặc hoàn cảnh. Mỗi cảnh phải có mục tiêu và hậu quả rõ ràng, mỗi phần phải có một mini climax trước khi kết thúc. Không recap dài dòng, kết thúc bằng một điểm dừng căng thẳng hoặc khoảnh khắc nguy hiểm nhất của câu chuyện. Nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sàng. Có yếu tố con người,
Cấm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, không giới thiệu phần sau, không nhắc đến Chúa. Chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyện. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật, không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu.
Showmore 829. Claude responded. Part 3, Part 3. The weeks that followed blurred together in ways that should have been concerning. Mara found herself losing track of time completely. One moment she'd be practicing storm summoning with Kaelion, the next she'd realize days had passed without her noticing. The deep had its own rhythm, its own pulse, and she was sinking to it whether she wanted to or not. Kaelion was pleased with her progress. More than pleased, he was proud, and he showed it in ways both subtle and obvious. Gifts appeared in her chambers, strings of black pearls that glowed in the dark, shells that sang when the currents passed through them, a crown made of coral and bone that fit her head like it had been waiting for her all along. "You're adjusting faster than your mother did," he told her one evening as they swam through a trench so deep the water pressed against her skin like a living thing. "She fought it for months. You've embraced it." Had she? Mara wasn't sure embraced was the right word. Surrendered, maybe, or accepted. There was nowhere else to go, nothing else to be. The surface world had made its choice. She was making hers. "What happened to her?" Mara asked. "Really? You said she tried to go back to you." Kaelion was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that made the water around them grow heavy. "She came to me in secret, brought you. You were maybe 3 years old. She begged me to take you both, to let you live here where you'd be safe. But you didn't. I told her the same thing I told you, that the transformation requires choice, that I could force it on her, but it would break her mind completely. She needed to choose it willingly." His bioluminescent eyes dimmed slightly. "She said she needed time to think, needed to go back to the surface, to settle her affairs. She never made it. Her body washed up 2 days later." Mara felt something twist in her chest. Did she jump? Or did someone... I don't know. The ocean doesn't always tell me its secrets. Kaelion reached out, his webbed hand gentle against her cheek. "But I swore on her corpse that I would watch over you, that when the time came, I would offer you the choice she never got to make. And I chose this. You survived. That's what matters. But had she chosen? Or had she simply been backed into a corner with no other options?" The question gnawed at her, but she pushed it away. It didn't matter now. This was her life, her reality. They were heading back to the palace when Kaelion suddenly stopped, his whole body going rigid. "What?" Mara started, but he held up a hand for silence. For several heartbeats, they floated in the darkness. Then Mara felt it too, a disturbance in the water. Something wrong. Something that tasted like blood and fear. "Stay here," Kaelion commanded. But Mara was already following him as he shot toward the surface. They found the source a quarter mile from the cliffs. A fishing boat, one of the packs by the markings on its hull, was capsized and sinking. The water around it was churning with sharks, not the regular kind, but the massive deep-water species that Mara had learned could be called and controlled. And they were controlled. She could feel it, someone else's will driving them into a feeding frenzy. "Kaelion," she said slowly, "did you do this?" "No." His face was grim. "But someone did. Someone with power over the deep." There were bodies in the water, 3 of them, thrashing and screaming. Mara recognized one of them even from this distance. Marcus, the enforcer who'd thrown her over the cliff. She should have felt satisfaction, should have wanted to watch him die. Instead, she moved without thinking, pulling the water into a barrier between the sharks and the drowning wolves. The sharks hit it and scattered, confused, their hunting instinct disrupted. "What are you doing?" Kaelion demanded. "I don't know," Mara admitted. But she was already pulling the wolves toward them through the water, away from the sinking boat and the circling predators. Marcus coughed up seawater as she dragged him close enough to grab. His eyes widened in recognition and terror. "You..." "Shut up and don't fight me," Mara snapped. She grabbed the other two, young wolves she didn't recognize, barely more than teenagers, and pulled all three toward the shallows. Kalion followed, his expression unreadable. You're saving them. I'm not a murderer. They tried to murder you, which makes me better than them. Mara deposited the three wolves in water shallow enough that they could stand, then backed away before they could try to grab her. Get out of here, now! Marcus stared at her, water streaming from his hair, his face a mask of confusion and fear. Why would you, after what we... Because I'm not like you, Mara said. Now go, before I change my mind. They scrambled toward shore, half swimming, half crawling. Mara watched them disappear over the rocks, her heart pounding. That was foolish, Kalion said quietly. Maybe. They'll tell the pack, tell Rylan, that you saved them. Good. Mara turned to face him. Let them know I'm not the monster they tried to make me. Kalion studied her for a long moment, his ancient eyes searching her face for something. You're still tied to them, to that world, to him. I'm not. You are. He moved closer, and there was something almost sad in his expression. I thought time would sever it. Thought seeing them suffer would be enough. But you're still looking back, Mara, still caring what they think. So what if I am? The words came out defensive, sharp. They're still my people, were my people. I spent my whole life trying to be one of them, and they threw you away. Kalion's voice hardened. They tried to kill you. How many times must they reject you before you accept it? I have accepted it. I'm here, aren't I? I'm with you. Mara gestured at her transformed body, her tail, her scales. I'm this. I can't go back even if I wanted to. Can't you? The question hung in the water between them. Mara's breath caught. What do you mean? The transformation can be reversed. Not easily, and not without cost, but it's possible. Kalion's expression was carefully neutral. If you chose to go back to them, I wouldn't stop you. You're lying. I'm not. He reached out, took her hand. I want you here, Mara. Want you as my queen, my equal, my mate. But I won't keep you prisoner. If your heart is still with the wolves, if you still want that life, I don't. The words came out too fast, too defensive. I don't want them. I want this. I want... She stopped because she wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. The anger that had sustained her for weeks was fading, replaced by something more complicated. Grief, maybe. Loss. The phantom ache of bonds that no longer existed. Think about it, Kalion said gently. But think carefully. Because if you choose them, if you go back, there's no coming here again. The ocean only takes back its children once. He left her there in the shallows, and Mara floated alone as the sun began to rise. The light filtered down through the water, turning everything gold and green. Beautiful, in a way that made her chest ache. She thought about Rylan, about his broken face when he'd seen her, about the way he'd begged for forgiveness. She thought about Senna, who'd tried to stop them, about the young wolves she'd just saved, who probably had no idea why she'd been thrown into the ocean in the first place. And she thought about her mother, caught between two worlds until it killed her. Maybe that was her destiny too. Maybe some people were just meant to fall through the cracks, to belong nowhere, completely. The thought should have been depressing. Instead, it felt almost freeing. When she returned to the palace, she found Kalion waiting in the throne room, a massive chamber carved from a single piece of black volcanic rock, veined with minerals that glowed like starlight. He was seated on what could only be called a throne, though it looked more organic than constructed, like it had grown from the rock itself. I've been thinking about what you said, Mara began. And? I don't want to go back to them, but I don't want to hide down here forever either. She moved closer, her tail propelling her in smooth, powerful strokes. You said I could be a bridge between worlds. What if that's exactly what I should be? Kalion's eyes gleamed with interest. Go on. The pack is suffering, winter's coming, and they've lost so much, they're vulnerable. Mara's mind was racing now, pieces clicking into place. What if I offered them a deal? Protection from the ocean, good fishing, safe passage on the water, in exchange for resources. Trade. You want to help them. Kalion's voice was flat. I want to use them, Mara corrected. The deep is powerful, but it doesn't have everything. We need surface goods, metal, certain foods, medicine, things that only land dwellers can provide. And they need the ocean's bounty. We both benefit. And what makes you think they'll agree? After everything? Because they're desperate. Because Rylan is weak and getting weaker. Because I'm offering them survival. Mara smiled, and it felt sharp. And because I'll make it very clear what happens if they refuse. Kalion was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, a sound like deep ocean currents grinding against ancient stone. You're more like me than I thought. Very well. We'll play this game, but on one condition. What? If they betray you, and they will try, eventually, you let me destroy them. Completely. No mercy. No second chances. Mara thought about Marcus's terrified face, about the young wolves choking on seawater, about Rylan on his knees, broken and begging. Deal, she said. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Kalion taught her how to project her voice through the water, how to make the ocean itself carry her words to shore. He showed her how to command the currents, to bring fish to the surface or drive them away, how to read the weather patterns and influence them. You're a quick study, he said as she successfully called a school of tuna to circle the palace. Your mother took months to learn this. I'm more motivated than she was. Are you? Kalion tilted his head, studying her. Or are you just angrier? Does it matter? I suppose not. On the 4th day, Mara swam to the surface alone. She'd sent a message ahead, or rather, she'd caused a message to appear. She'd learned she could manipulate water vapor, could make it condense into words on windows and mirrors. The pack would have found her ultimatum that morning. Meet me at the cliffs at sunset. Come alone, Alpha. She waited as the sun began its descent, floating in the deeper water where she could submerge quickly if needed. Her heart was pounding despite her outward calm. This was the moment. Either they'd accept her offer, or... Rylan appeared at the cliff's edge exactly as the sun touched the horizon. He was alone, as she'd demanded, and he looked worse than he had weeks ago. Thinner, grayer, like something was eating him from the inside out. His eyes scanned the water, searching. I'm here, Mara called, rising just enough that her head and shoulders cleared the surface. Rylan's breath caught audibly even from this distance. You came. You didn't think I would? I didn't know. He moved to the very edge of the cliff, as close as he could get without falling. I wanted to. Mara, I'm so sorry. I didn't come here for apologies. I know, He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made something in Mara's chest twist. My wolf is dying. I haven't been able to shift fully in over a month. The healers say it's because of the broken bond, that I'm killing myself. Good, Mara said flatly. You deserve it. Rylan flinched but didn't argue. The pack is falling apart. Half of them want to exile me. The other half are too scared of what comes next to act. We lost another fishing boat yesterday. I know. I saved your men. I know. Marcus told me. Rylan's eyes were desperate. Why? Why would you save them after what we did? Because I'm not you. Mara let the words sink in. I'm not cruel just because I can be. I don't throw people away when they're inconvenient. The barb hit its target. Rylan's face crumpled, and for a moment he looked like he might cry. What do you want from me, Mara? I'll give you anything. The alpha position, the pack, my life. Just tell me what you want. I want a trade agreement. Whatever Rylan had been expecting, it wasn't that. What? The ocean is mine to command now. I can make your fishing profitable again, can keep the storms from destroying your homes, can even heal your wolf, maybe, if I'm feeling generous. Mara watched his face carefully. In exchange, you give me metal, tools, surface goods that can't be made underwater, and you acknowledge my authority over these waters. You're offering to help us? I'm offering a business arrangement. You need what I have. I need what you have. We trade. Mara's voice hardened. But make no mistake, Rylan, I'm not one of you anymore. I'm not Pack. I'm something else. And if you ever betray me again, if you ever try to hurt me or the ocean I protect, I will drown every last one of you. Am I clear? Rylan stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Clear. But Mara, the pack won't accept this. Not all of them. Elder Thorn, Kara, some of the others, They still think you're cursed, dangerous. Then make them accept it. You're the alpha. Act like it. I'm barely holding on. Then maybe you shouldn't be alpha anymore. The words came out colder than Mara intended, but she didn't take them back. Find someone strong enough to lead, or get strong enough yourself. I don't care which, but I need a pack that can hold up their end of the deal. And if I can't deliver? Then the ocean keeps what's hers, and you all starve when winter comes. It was brutal, harsh, but it was also honest, and Mara could see Rylan struggling with it. The old him would have raged at being spoken to this way, would have asserted his dominance, reminded her of her place. But the old him had died the night he threw her off this cliff. I'll make it work, he said finally. Give me 3 days. I'll gather the pack leaders, make them see reason. 3 days, Mara agreed. And Rylan? Don't make me regret this. She started to sink back under, but his voice stopped her. Wait, please. Against her better judgment, she surfaced again. What? The bond. Between us. I can still feel it sometimes, like a phantom limb. His voice was raw, vulnerable in a way she'd never heard from him. Can you? Do you feel anything? Mara wanted to lie, wanted to tell him she felt nothing, that he was less than nothing to her now. But something in his broken expression pulled the truth out. Yes, she admitted quietly. I feel it, the echo of what could have been. It's like a scar that won't quite heal. Is there... Rylan's voice cracked. Is there any way to fix it, to rebuild what I destroyed? I don't know. I don't think so. Mara met his eyes across the water. And even if there was, I'm not sure I'd want to. You showed me who you really are, Rylan. When things got hard, when I needed you most, you chose fear over everything else. That's not something you can just fix with an apology. I know. He stopped, swallowed hard. I just needed to ask. Mara said nothing. There was nothing to say. She sank beneath the waves and didn't look back. But she felt his eyes on her all the way down into the dark. The 3 days passed slowly. Mara threw herself into preparations, working with Kaelion to create a demonstration that would impress the pack leaders. She practiced calling fish, controlling currents, even manipulating the weather on a small scale. You're nervous, Kaelion observed as they worked. I'm not, Mara started, then sighed. Fine. Yes, I'm nervous. This is important. Why? If they refuse, we simply take what we need. The ocean is vast. We don't need the wolves. Maybe I do. The admission surprised them both. Kaelion's expression darkened. You're still hoping they'll accept you. Even now, after everything, you want them to see you as one of them. I want them to see me as powerful, as necessary, as someone they can't just throw away. Mara's hands clenched into fists. Is that so wrong? It's dangerous. Because it means you still care what they think. And people who care are easy to manipulate, easy to hurt. I've already been hurt as badly as I can be. Have you? Kaelion moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the way only an ancient being's could be. Or are you setting yourself up for another betrayal, another rejection? They need me now. They can't afford to reject me. People do foolish things when they're afraid, desperate things. His eyes glowed brighter. Promise me, Mara. If this goes wrong, when it goes wrong, you won't hesitate. You'll let me protect you. It won't go wrong. Promise me anyway. Mara looked into those ancient, inhuman eyes and saw genuine concern there, maybe even fear. I promise. The meeting was set for the third evening at the cliffs. Mara arrived early, Kaelion at her side. They stayed in the deeper water, watching as the pack gathered above. There were more of them than Mara had expected, dozens of wolves in human form crowding the cliff top. She recognized many faces, pack members who'd sneered at her, ignored her, made her life small and miserable. Ryland stood at the front, flanked by his enforcers. Elder Thorn was there, leaning on his walking stick. Kara. Marcus. Others whose names Mara had never bothered to learn, and Senna. Her cousin stood near the back, her face hopeful and terrified in equal measure. This is a lot of witnesses, Kaelion murmured. If something goes wrong... It won't. But Mara's heart was hammering as she rose to the surface. The gathered wolves fell silent, staring at her with expressions ranging from awe to disgust to outright fear. "You came," Reland said. His voice carried over the water, strong despite his haggard appearance. "All of you. You've heard my proposal. The ocean offers us trade, protection and resources in exchange for goods and respect." "Respect for an abomination," Elder Thorn spat. "Respect for the thing that cursed us in the first place." "I didn't curse you," Mara said, her voice cold and clear. "You cursed yourselves when you tried to murder me. You brought the storms. After you threw me to my death." Mara's shout echoed off the rocks. "I was defending myself, surviving. What would you have done in my place?" "We would have died with dignity," Kara said. "Not become—" She gestured at Mara's tail, her scales. "This," Mara said, gesturing at herself, "is power. This is strength. This is what saved me when all of you turned your backs. And now I'm offering to share it with you, to help you survive the winter, to make your lives easier. And you're too proud to accept?" "We don't need your help," someone shouted from the crowd. "Don't you?" Mara raised one hand and the water responded. Fish began to surface around her, hundreds of them, thousands, every species that the pack relied on for food. "I can call them or send them away. I can make your fishing profitable or leave your nets empty. I can keep the storms gentle or tear your houses apart. You tell me, do you need my help or not?" The crowd murmured, uncertain. Mara could see the doubt on their faces, the fear warring with pride. Then Elder Thorn stepped forward, his face twisted with hatred. "We survived before you. We'll survive after. We don't make deals with demons." "I'm not a demon. I'm one of you. You stopped being one of us the moment you crawled out of that water with scales and a fishtail," Thorn snarled. "Your mother was an aberration. You're an aberration. And we should have drowned you at birth like we tried to drown her." The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" "Your mother didn't kill herself," Thorn continued, his voice gaining strength. "We killed her, held her under until she stopped struggling, tried to do the same to you, but your cousin hid you away. We should have tried harder." The world seemed to tilt. Mara stared at the old wolf, at his self-righteous face, and felt something inside her crack wide open. "You murdered her. We removed a threat, just like we tried to remove you." Thorn turned to address the crowd. "This thing offers us nothing but more corruption, more curse. We should finish what we started, drive her back into the deep and be done with it." Several wolves nodded. Some looked uncertain, but enough looked convinced that Mara felt ice spread through her veins. "Thorn, that's enough." Ryland started, but the old wolf cut him off. "You're weak, boy. Too weak to do what needs doing, too weak to lead." Thorn's eyes swept the crowd. "We need a real alpha. Someone who'll put the pack first." It happened fast. One moment Thorn was talking, the next Marcus had shifted, a massive gray wolf with teeth like knives, and was charging at Ryland. Ryland tried to shift to meet him, his body contorted, bones starting to break and reform, and then he screamed. The transformation stopped halfway, leaving him trapped in an agonizing in-between state. Not wolf, not human, but something broken and wrong. Marcus hit him like a freight train, jaws closing around Ryland's deformed shoulder. Blood sprayed across the rocks. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some shifted, some ran, some just stood frozen in shock. And Mara felt something snap inside her chest. The phantom bond, the echo of what she and Ryland had been supposed to be, flared to agonizing life as she felt his pain, his fear, his dying wolf howling in despair. "No," she breathed. Then, louder, "No!" The ocean responded to her rage. Water exploded upward in a massive wave, crashing over the cliff and washing half the wolves off their feet. Mara shot forward, propelling herself up and onto the rocks with a strength she didn't know she possessed. Her tail was useless on land, but she didn't need it. She called the water to her, used it to lift herself, to move. She reached Ryland and Marcus in seconds. Marcus's jaws were still locked on Ryland's shoulder. Mara grabbed the wolf's massive head with both hands, her webbed fingers finding purchase, and pulled. The water answered her call. It forced its way into Marcus's lungs, drowning him from the inside out. His eyes went wide with panic, and he released Ryland, choking. Mara threw him aside like he weighed nothing. He crashed into a group of wolves who scattered, terrified. "Touch him again," Mara snarled. her voice layered with harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "And I will drown you all." Kalion had surfaced behind her, his massive form rising from the water like a nightmare made flesh. "Mara," he said quietly, urgently, "we need to leave, now." But Mara wasn't listening. She was kneeling beside Rylan, whose transformation had finally reversed, leaving him human and broken and bleeding. So much blood. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing her hands to his torn shoulder. "Don't you dare die. Not like this." Rylan's eyes found hers, clouded with pain. "Mara, run. They'll kill you." "Let them try." Around them, the pack was regrouping. Elder Thorn was shouting orders, and wolves were circling, teeth bared, too many of them. Even with Kalion's power and her own, there were too many. "This is what happens," Thorn's voice rang out. "This is what she brings. Death and chaos. Kill them both. Kill them all." The wolves charged. Mara threw up a wall of water, but there were too many angles, too many attackers. Teeth and claws found her scales, tearing. Pain exploded across her back, her arms. Kalion roared, a sound that made the ocean itself shudder, and began pulling wolves into the water. But for every one he dragged under, two more took their place. They were going to die here. All of them. And then Senna's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop!" Everyone froze. Mara's cousin stood on a rock outcropping, her face fierce, her hands raised. "Stop it! All of you! This is murder!" "The Alpha is dead," Thorn said. "Marcus is Alpha now, and he's given his first order. Eliminate the threat." "Rylan's not dead," Senna's voice shook but held firm. "And even if he was, Marcus doesn't become Alpha by killing him. That's not pack law. That's treason." Some of the wolves looked uncertain. Pack law was sacred. Even in their fear and anger, they hesitated. "The law is whatever serves the pack," Thorn said dismissively. "And right now—" He never finished the sentence. Mara felt it before she saw it. A surge of power from the ocean so massive it made everything she'd done before look like child's play. The water didn't rise in a wave this time. It simply reached up and grabbed Elder Thorn like a giant's fist, dragging him off the cliff and into the deep. But it wasn't her doing. It wasn't Kalion's doing. Mara turned to stare at Rylan, still bleeding on the rocks, his hand outstretched, his eyes glowing with that same bioluminescent light that marked her and Kalion. "Impossible," Kalion breathed. Rylan's head fell back, unconscious, his hand dropping to the stone. But the damage was done. The water had claimed Thorn completely. The old wolf's screams echoed for a moment, then went silent. The pack stared in horror at the spot where their elder had stood. "What?" Marcus stammered. "What was that?" Mara looked at Rylan's unconscious form, at the faint shimmer of scales beginning to form along his torn shoulder where his blood mixed with her own, at the impossible truth that was literally written on his skin. The bond hadn't broken. It had transformed. And somehow, some way, Rylan was changing too. "Get back," Mara said to the shocked wolves, her voice hard. "All of you, get back or I finish what he started." They retreated. Even Marcus, even with his new claimed authority, backed away from the sheer power radiating from her and Kalion and the impossible thing that Rylan was becoming. Mara gathered Rylan's limp body in her arms. He was too heavy for her to carry on land, so she called the water to help, creating a cushion of ocean that lifted them both. "This isn't over," Marcus shouted, trying to salvage some authority. "You can't just—" "It's over when I say it's over," Mara said flatly. "And right now, I'm taking him. If anyone follows, if anyone tries to stop me, I will sink this entire coastline. Do you understand?" No one moved. No one spoke. Mara and Kalion retreated into the water, Rylan cradled between them. As they sank beneath the surface, as the palace depths rose to meet them, Mara realized with crystal clarity that everything had just changed. The trade agreement was dead. The fragile peace was shattered, and somehow, impossibly, the mate bond she thought was broken forever had returned, but twisted into something new, something that was pulling Rylan into her world whether he wanted it or not. She looked at his pale face, at the scales slowly spreading across his skin, and felt terror and hope war in her chest. "What's happening to him?" she asked Kalion. The ancient being's expression was grave, something that shouldn't be possible. The bond is trying to complete itself. It's transforming him the same way I transformed you. Can we stop it? I don't know. I've never seen this before. Kalion's eyes met hers. But Mara, if he completes the transformation, there's no going back. He'll be like us. Ocean-born. He'll never be able to return to his pack. Mara looked at the unconscious alpha in her arms, at the mate who'd thrown her away and was now being dragged into the same abyss. Good, she said, and meant it. Let him feel what I felt. Let him lose everything too. But even as she said it, even as they descended into the crushing dark with Ryland's life hanging by a thread, Mara couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just set something in motion that would destroy them all. Ryland's transformation took 3 days, and every minute of it was agony. Mara stayed with him in one of the palace's healing chambers, watching as his body tore itself apart and rebuilt into something new. His screams echoed through the coral halls, making even the ancient stones tremble. Kaelion had sedated him with some kind of toxin harvested from deep-sea creatures, but it only dulled the pain, didn't eliminate it. This is different from yours, Kaelion observed, studying Ryland's changing form with clinical interest. You were dying when I transformed you. Your body accepted it as survival. His is fighting it. Can you stop it? Mara asked, though she wasn't sure what answer she wanted. I don't think so. The bond between you, it's driving this. It wants completion, wants you matched. Kalion's bioluminescent eyes glowed brighter in the dim chamber. The question is whether his body can survive the change. Mara looked at Ryland's face, twisted in pain even in his drugged sleep. Scales were spreading across his chest now, iridescent in the phosphorescent light. His legs had begun to fuse yesterday, the bones cracking and reforming. She'd had to look away during that part. Why did the bond come back? She asked quietly. You said rejection was final. I said it was supposed to be. Kaelion moved closer, his webbed hand resting on her shoulder. But nothing about you is what it's supposed to be, Mara. You're half ocean, half wolf. The bond broke, but when you saved him, when your blood mixed with his, it created a bridge, a way back. I didn't mean to... Didn't you? His voice was gentle but knowing. You could have let him die up there. Let Marcus tear him apart. But you chose to save him, again. Mara had no answer to that. She'd acted on instinct, on the phantom pull of a bond she thought was dead. And now Ryland was paying the price for her moment of weakness. Or maybe it wasn't weakness. Maybe it was something else entirely. On the 3rd day, Ryland's screams finally stopped. His body had completed its grotesque restructuring. Where legs had been, now a powerful tail flexed weakly. His skin shimmered with scales that shifted from silver to dark blue. Gills had formed along his ribs, opening and closing with each breath of water. He looked like Mara now. Changed. Other. Beautiful and terrible in equal measure. Will he wake up? Mara asked. Eventually. But when he does... Kaelion paused. He's going to be very different. Confused. Possibly violent. His wolf is gone completely now, consumed by the transformation. He'll have lost a fundamental part of himself. Like I did. Yes and no. You lost your wolf because of the rejection. He's losing his because of the acceptance, because the bond is forcing him to match you. Kalion's expression was grave. When he wakes, he may hate you for it, may hate what he's become. Then he'll know how I felt. But the words tasted bitter even as she said them. This wasn't the revenge she'd wanted. This was just sad, broken. Two people who'd destroyed each other in different ways. Ryland's eyes opened slowly, the new bioluminescence flickering uncertainly. For a moment he just stared at the coral ceiling above him, breathing water like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he tried to speak, choked, and started coughing. Mara moved to his side, helping him sit up. His tail, still unfamiliar to him, thrashed awkwardly. Easy, she murmured. Don't try to talk yet. Your body needs time to adjust. Ryland's eyes found hers, and she saw the moment recognition hit, saw the memory of what had happened crash over him like a wave. He looked down at himself, at the tail, the scales, the webbed hands. No, he managed, his voice layered with those same harmonics that marked Kaelion and Mara. No, no, no. What did you do to me?
I didn't do anything. The bond did this. Our blood mixing, it triggered a transformation I didn't know was possible. Change me back. It wasn't a request. Change me back right now. I can't. You did this. You fix it. Ryland's tail lashed, sending equipment clattering across the chamber floor. I'm Alpha of the Drax Pack. I'm a wolf. I'm not this.
You were Alpha, Kalian corrected, stepping into view. But that life is over now. You're ocean-born, the same as Mara, the same as me. Reland stared at the ancient being, and Mara watched something crumble in his expression. The reality of what he'd lost finally sinking in. My pack, he whispered. I left them in chaos. Marcus, he'll destroy everything. They tried to kill us, Mara said coldly. Or did you forget that part? Thorn was the one pushing for violence. Not everyone agreed with him. Enough agreed. Enough stood by and watched. Mara's voice hardened. They made their choice, Rylan, just like you made yours when you threw me off that cliff. I was wrong. The words burst from him, raw and desperate. I know I was wrong. I've known it every single day since, but this... He gestured at himself, at the tail and scales. This isn't justice. This is torture. Welcome to my world. They stared at each other, the water between them heavy with unspoken history. Finally, Ryland's shoulders slumped in defeat. How long will it take? He asked quietly. Until I can move properly. Until I can... His voice broke. Until I can accept what I am now. Took me about a month, Mara said, but I wanted to change. Wanted the power. You're fighting it, so probably longer. I don't want the power. I want my pack, my life. That's gone. You're here now. With me. With us. Mara felt something twist in her chest at the words. The bond completed itself. We're mates, Rylan. Actually, truly mated. You feel it, don't you? She saw the answer in his face before he spoke. The bond was there, solid and real and undeniable. Not the broken, aching thing it had been, but complete. Strong. Tying them together in ways that terrified them both. I feel it, he admitted. I hate it, but I feel it. Good, because it's not going away. Mara stood, her tail moving with the unconscious grace of long practice. Kalion will help you learn to move, to hunt, to survive down here. I have work to do. What work? The pack. Your pack. They're vulnerable now, and winter's coming. Mara's smile was sharp. Someone needs to make sure they survive, even if they don't deserve it. Reland's eyes widened. You're going to help them. After everything. I'm going to ensure they understand exactly who holds the power now. There's a difference. She left before he could respond, swimming through the palace corridors with purpose. Kalian caught up to her in the throne room. You're going back to the surface, he said. It wasn't a question. They need to see that I'm not afraid of them. That what happened on the cliffs doesn't change anything. It changes everything. You nearly died up there. Nearly doesn't count. Mara turned to face him. I'm stronger than they are, more powerful, and they need to understand that, really understand it. And Rylan? What about him? He's your mate now, truly bonded. That means his pain is your pain, his safety is your concern. Kalen's expression was unreadable. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Mara thought about Ryland's devastated face when he'd seen what he'd become, about the hate and fear and desperate confusion in his eyes. I didn't ask for this bond any more than he did, but it exists now. So yes, I'll protect him. The same way I'll protect the ocean and everything in it. Her voice hardened. But I won't coddle him. He made choices that led here. He gets to live with the consequences. You're cruel to him. He was cruel to me first. And that makes it right? The question hung in the water between them. Mara wanted to say yes, wanted to justify her anger and bitterness. But she was tired. So tired of carrying this weight. I don't know what's right anymore, she admitted. I just know I'm not going to roll over and forgive him because fate decided we belong together. He has to earn that, if he even can. Kaelion studied her for a long moment. You're more like your mother than you realize. She struggled with the same thing, caught between worlds, unable to fully commit to either one. And it killed her. It did. So learn from her mistake. He moved closer, his massive form somehow gentle. Choose, Mara. Ocean or land. Vengeance or mercy. But choose completely. Being stuck in the middle will destroy you. He left her alone in the throne room, and Mara stared at the seat of power she'd never asked for but somehow claimed anyway. She thought about her mother, drowning in the shallows while trying to return to an ancient lover. She thought about Rylan, trapped in a transformation he never wanted. She thought about herself caught between worlds, just like Kalion said. Maybe that was her destiny. Maybe some people were meant to exist in the spaces between, never fully belonging anywhere. Or maybe she could create her own space, her own rules. The idea formed slowly, piece by piece, until it was fully realized in her mind. She would go back to the surface, but not to beg or negotiate, not to prove herself or seek acceptance. She would go back as exactly what she was, a queen of the deep who commanded the ocean itself. And she would make them an offer they couldn't refuse, on terms that left no doubt about who held the power. 2 days later, Mara surfaced at the pack's main harbor. Not the cliffs where she'd been thrown and where Rylan had nearly died, but the working docks where fishing boats launched and where the pack conducted their trade with other territories. It was early morning, the sun just breaking the horizon. A dozen wolves were preparing boats for the day's fishing, and they froze when they saw her rise from the water. "I need to speak to whoever's in charge," Mara called out, her voice carrying easily across the dock. The wolves stared, uncertain. Finally, one of them, a young male she didn't recognize, called back, "Marcus is acting alpha, but he's not here." "Then get him." He said if you came back we should drive you off, or kill you." Mara smiled, showing teeth. "You're welcome to try." No one moved. The threat was clear. She could pull them all into the water before they took 3 steps. They knew it. She knew it. "Smart," she said. "Now go get Marcus. Tell him the ocean wants to talk terms." The young wolf ran. The others stayed frozen on the dock, watching her with a mixture of fear and fascination. Mara waited patiently, floating in the harbor entrance. She could feel the ocean around her, responsive to her slightest thought. Fish swam in patterns she directed. The current moved where she willed it. She was master here, and everyone could see it. Marcus arrived with a dozen enforcers, all in wolf form, teeth bared. He shifted back to human as he approached the dock's edge, his expression hard. "You've got nerve showing your face here," he said. "I've got power. There's a difference." Mara gestured at the ocean behind her. "Your boats are going out today. Want to know what they'll find? Threats won't. Empty nets. The fish have moved to deeper waters. You could sail for days and find nothing." Mara's smile widened. "Unless I call them back, unless I guide them into your nets like I've been doing for the past month." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about? Your catches have been good lately, better than they've been in years. Did you think that was luck?" Mara laughed. "I've been feeding you, making sure you don't starve before winter. Call it a gift. Or an investment. We don't want your... You need it. Your stores are still low from the storm damage. Half your pack is sick from bad water and poor nutrition. Your new alpha," she said the word with deliberate mockery, "has no idea how to lead in a crisis. You're dying slowly, Marcus, all of you." The wolves growled, but none of them moved. They couldn't argue with the truth. "What do you want?" Marcus asked through gritted teeth. "The same thing I wanted before. Trade. You give me metal, tools, surface goods. I give you fish, protection from storms, safe passage on the water. It's a fair deal. And if we refuse, then you starve. Simple as that." Mara's voice hardened. "But here's the new part. The part that's not negotiable. Senna comes with me." Marcus blinked. "What?" "My cousin. She tried to protect me when you all turned on me. She deserves better than this pack. So she comes with me, lives in the palace, becomes part of my court. You can't just take pack members. I can take whatever I want. I'm giving you the courtesy of asking." Mara's eyes glowed brighter. "Bring her to the dock. Let her choose. If she wants to stay with you, I won't force her. But I'm betting she's smart enough to see where the real power is." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but Senna's voice cut through the tension. "I'll go." She'd been standing at the back of the crowd, and now she pushed forward. Her face was determined, her chin lifted in defiance. "Senna," Marcus started. I'll go, she repeated firmly. Mara's right. This pack threw her away, tried to kill her. I won't be part of that anymore. You're a wolf. You belong with your pack. I belong where I choose to belong. Senna moved to the dock's edge, looking down at Mara in the water. Can I really breathe down there, or will I need... You'll need help at first, Mara said. But yes, we can make it work, if you're sure. I'm sure. Mara held out her hand, and Senna took it without hesitation. The water rose to meet them, and Senna gasped as it closed over her head. But Mara was ready, using her power to create a bubble of air-infused water around her cousin's face. Breathe normally, she instructed. Trust me. Senna did, her eyes wide with wonder as she found she could breathe the specially oxygenated water Mara was maintaining around her. The trade deal stands, Mara called back to Marcus and the assembled wolves. First delivery is 3 days from now. Fishing nets, iron tools, preserved foods. Leave them on the dock at sunset. You'll find your payment in the morning. And if we don't, then your nets stay empty, your boats sink, your water goes bad, and you all die slowly while I watch. Mara's smile was cold. Your choice, acting alpha. But choose quickly. Winter waits for no one. She descended with Senna, leaving the shocked wolves behind. As they swam deeper, as the surface light faded to blue-green twilight, Senna finally spoke. That was incredible. You were incredible. I was cruel. They deserved it. Senna's voice was fierce. After what they did to you, what they tried to do, they deserved worse. Maybe. But cruelty doesn't make me feel better. It just makes me feel, Mara struggled for the word, heavy. Like I'm carrying something I don't want. Then why do it? Because someone has to. Someone has to make them understand that actions have consequences. That you can't just throw people away and expect no pushback. They swam in silence for a while. Then Senna asked quietly, Is it true? About Rylan? That he's like you now? Yes. How is he? Miserable. Angry. Broken. Mara's chest tightened. The bond completed itself. We're true mates now, which is hilarious considering we both hate it. Do you? Hate it? Mara thought about that. About Rylan's agonized transformation, his devastated face, the bond that pulled at her constantly now like a second heartbeat. I don't know, she admitted. I hate what he did to me. But the bond, it's different now, stronger. And part of me feels... She stopped, not sure how to explain. Complete. For the first time in my life, something inside me feels settled. And I hate that too because he doesn't deserve to make me feel that way. Maybe it's not about deserving. Maybe it's just about being. When did you get so wise? Senna laughed. When I decided to follow my crazy Ocean Queen cousin into the deep, seemed like a good time to start thinking philosophically. The palace loomed ahead, its coral spires glowing in the dim water. Senna gasped at the sight of it. It's beautiful, she breathed. It's home, Mara said, and realized she meant it. This was her home now, not the pack territory she'd grown up in, not the small cabin where she'd been tolerated but never welcomed. This palace of coral and stone and ancient power, this was where she belonged. They found Kalion in the main hall with Rylan, who was practicing movement in one of the training pools. He'd improved in the days since waking, could navigate with his tail now without crashing into things. But his face was still tight with misery. He looked up when Mara and Senna entered, his eyes widening in recognition. Senna? His voice was rough, still adjusting to the new harmonics. What are you doing here? I chose to come, Senna said firmly. Chose Mara over the pack that tried to kill her. Something complicated crossed Rylan's face. The pack? How are they? Is Marcus... Marcus is a terrible alpha, Mara said flatly. They're struggling, starving, exactly like I told you they would be. And you're just letting it happen? No, I made them a deal. Trade for survival. They accepted. Rylan stared at her. You're helping them. I'm helping them help themselves. There's a difference. Mara moved closer, studying his progress. You're moving better. Kalion's a patient teacher, unlike some people. The barb landed, but Mara didn't rise to it. You want patience. Earn it. You want compassion. Show some first. I've apologized. Apologies are words. I want action. I want proof that you understand what you did, what you took from me. I can't give you back what you lost. I can't undo. I know you can't, which is why you're going to have to live with the guilt, just like I have to live with these. She gestured at her scales, her tail, and this bond that won't let me hate you properly, even though you deserve it. Reelin flinched. You think I don't feel the guilt? Every second of every day? I destroyed you, Mara. I know that. And now I'm living in the same hell I condemned you to. You think that's not punishment enough? Honestly, no, I don't. They stared at each other, the bond between them pulsing with emotions neither wanted to name. Finally, Kaelion cleared his throat. Perhaps you should show Senna to her chambers. Give yourselves some space before you say something truly unforgivable. He was right. Mara could feel herself wanting to wound Rylan further, to make him hurt the way she'd hurt. It was a dangerous impulse, one that would only poison them both. Come on, she said to Senna, who'd been watching the exchange with wide eyes. Let me show you where you'll be staying. They left Rylan in the training pool, and Mara pretended not to feel his eyes following her, pretended the bond wasn't aching with his loneliness and regret. Over the next week, a strange routine developed. Mara spent her days managing the trade agreement with the pack, directing fish into their nets, calming storms before they could do damage, ensuring their survival. In return, Marcus left carefully measured piles of goods on the dock: iron tools, preserved meats, woven cloth, everything the ocean couldn't provide. The pack was surviving, barely, but surviving. And with each delivery, Mara felt the balance of power shifting. They needed her, truly needed her. Without her intervention, they would starve before winter ended. They knew it. She knew it. She'd become essential to their survival, and that was its own kind of revenge. Senna adapted to ocean life faster than Mara had expected. Kaelion crafted a charm for her, a piece of enchanted coral that allowed her to breathe water as easily as air. Within days, she was swimming through the palace like she'd been born to it. I never fit in up there either, she confessed one evening as they watched bioluminescent jellyfish drift past the palace windows. Not like you didn't fit, but I always felt restless, like there was something more out there, something bigger. And this is it? Maybe. Or maybe I'm just happy to be somewhere I'm valued, where being different is an asset instead of a problem. Mara understood that feeling intimately. Rylan, meanwhile, was learning not just how to move in his new body, but how to exist in this new world. Kaelion taught him to hunt, to navigate the deep currents, to read the ocean's moods. And slowly, grudgingly, Rylan began to accept what he'd become. I can still feel my wolf sometimes, he told Mara one day. They were in one of the upper gardens where kelp grew in elaborate patterns. Like a ghost, howling in the back of my mind. Does it hurt? Yes, but less than it did. He flexed his tail, sending ripples through the water. Kaelion says eventually the howling will stop, that I'll forget what it felt like to run on 4 legs instead of swim. Is that what you want? I don't know what I want anymore. Reelin's eyes met hers. Except, I want you to stop looking at me like I'm the enemy. I know I hurt you, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but we're bound together now, Mara. We're mates. Actually truly mated. Doesn't that mean anything? It means I can't kill you even when I want to, because your pain is my pain now. Is that all? Mara wanted to say yes. Wanted to keep him at arm's length where he couldn't hurt her again, but the bond was singing between them, pulling them closer despite her resistance. No, she admitted quietly. It means more than that. It means I feel your loneliness, your regret, your... She stopped, the word catching in her throat. Your love. Even though I don't want to. Rylan's expression cracked open, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. I do love you. I think I loved you from the moment the calling pulled us together. I was just too afraid to accept it. And now? Now I don't have a choice. You're all I have left, the only thing that matters. He moved closer, his hand reaching for hers. I can't undo what I did, but I can spend the rest of my life, however long that is, trying to be worthy of this bond. Of you. Mara looked at their hands, webbed, scaled, inhuman. 2 people who destroyed each other and been reborn into something new. I'm not ready to forgive you, she said. I know. And I'm not going to make this easy. I wouldn't expect you to. But, she took a breath, I'm willing to try. To see if we can build something from these broken pieces. Raylan's smile was small and sad and hopeful all at once. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. She let him hold her hand, let the bond settle into something less painful. Not comfortable, not yet, but bearable. Above them, on the surface, the pack struggled through another day of dependence on the ocean's mercy. And below, in the palace of coral and stone, two broken people began the slow, painful process of learning to be whole together. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. Winter came hard and fast that year, arriving weeks earlier than anyone expected. The pack's territory was blanketed in snow within days, the temperatures plummeting to levels that made survival a daily struggle. Mara watched from beneath the waves as ice began to form along the coastline, as the wolves huddled in their damaged homes and burned through their meager fuel supplies trying to stay warm. The trade agreement held. Barely. Marcus left goods on the dock every 3 days, and Mara ensured the fishing nets came back full. But she could see the strain in how the piles grew smaller, the quality declining. They were running out of things to trade. They won't last the winter, Kalian observed. He and Mara floated near the surface, watching smoke rise from the pack's fires. Another month, maybe 2. Then they'll have nothing left to give you. I know. And when that happens, Mara didn't answer. She'd been asking herself the same question for weeks. What happened when the pack had nothing left? Did she let them starve? Did she help them anyway? Did she... You're going to save them, Raylan said quietly. He'd swum up beside her without her noticing, moving through the water with increasing confidence. Aren't you? I don't know what I'm going to do. Yes, you do. You've been planning it for weeks. I can feel it through the bond. You're waiting for something, for the right moment. He was right, though Mara hadn't fully admitted it to herself. The bond had grown stronger between them, more intimate. She could feel his emotions like echoes of her own now, and apparently he could feel hers too. What I'm waiting for, she said slowly, is for them to break completely, to have no choice but to accept me. Not as a threat or a necessary evil, but as their salvation. Kalion's laugh was dark. You want them to worship you. I want them to understand that they were wrong, that throwing me away was the biggest mistake they ever made. Mara's eyes glowed brighter. I want them on their knees, Kalion, begging, desperate, with nowhere else to turn. That's cruel. They taught me cruelty. Raylan flinched, and Mara felt the sting of her words through their connection. She'd meant them to hurt him specifically, and they had. But beneath the satisfaction was something else. Guilt, maybe. Or exhaustion. She was tired of carrying this anger. What if there was another way? Raylan asked carefully. What if you could have everything you want without destroying them completely? I'm listening. You want them to acknowledge their mistake, to see you as powerful, essential, worthy of respect. Raylan moved closer, his voice low and intense. What if you gave them a choice? Real choice, not coercion. Offer to fully integrate with them, not as their servant or their threat, but as their equal. A new kind of alpha. They'd never accept that. Maybe not before. But now? Raylan gestured at the struggling pack territory. They're dying, Mara. Marcus is failing as alpha. Even his closest supporters can see it. The pack needs leadership, real leadership, and you have power they can't even comprehend. So I should just waltz back in and take over? Not take over. Unite. Raylan's eyes were earnest. You command the ocean. I was their alpha. Together, we could offer them something unprecedented, a pack that bridges land and sea. That has access to resources no other pack can match. Mara wanted to dismiss the idea immediately, but something about it resonated in a way she couldn't quite name. They tried to kill us both. Some of them did. Not all. Senna stood up for you. Others would have if they'd been braver. Raylan's hand found hers. Give them a chance to choose differently, to see what they threw away and reclaim it, not because you're forcing them, but because it's the smart thing to do. And if they refuse, then you'll have proof that they're beyond saving, And whatever you do after that, Ryland's voice hardened. I'll stand beside you. I'll help you do it. Mara studied his face, searching for deception or manipulation. But all she felt through the bond was sincerity. Desperate, aching sincerity. You really think this could work? She asked. I think it's worth trying, and I think... He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think you're tired of being angry, of carrying this weight. You want resolution, not revenge. You just don't know how to get there. He was right. She hated that he was right, but he was. Kalion, she asked, turning to the ancient being, what do you think? Kalion was silent for a long moment, his bioluminescent eyes studying her with an intensity that made the water feel heavy. I think you've already made your decision. You're just looking for permission. I don't need permission. Then why are you asking? His smile was knowing. You want to save them, Mara. You've wanted to since the beginning. All this talk of revenge, of making them suffer, it's been you trying to convince yourself you don't care. But you do. You care deeply. It's one of the things that makes you different from me. Is that weakness? It's humanity, which is rare and more valuable than you realize. Kalion moved closer, his massive hand gentle on her shoulder. Your mother tried to belong to both worlds, and it destroyed her. But maybe she just didn't have the strength to force the worlds to bend to her instead. You do. The words settled into Mara's chest like stones. Permission granted, if she wanted it. The question was, did she? She thought about her mother, drowning in shallow water while trying to choose between land and sea. About the pack that had murdered her and tried to murder Mara too. About Rylan, broken and transformed, offering her a path forward that didn't end in more destruction. 3 days, she said finally. I'll give them 3 days to decide. After that, whatever happens is their choice. The message was delivered at dawn. Mara created it from water vapor and morning mist, writing the words directly onto the frozen dock where the whole pack could see. To the Drax pack, your alpha lives, changed but alive. We offer you one choice, unite with us or face winter alone. 3 days. The cliffs at sunset. Come ready to listen or don't come at all. Mara and Rylan spent those 3 days preparing, not for war, though Kaelion insisted on teaching them combat formations just in case, but for negotiation, for the presentation of an offer too good to refuse. You'll need to look united, Senna advised. She'd been invaluable in helping them understand the pack's current political landscape, who held influence, who might be swayed. Not just bonded, but committed to each other. If they see division between you, they'll exploit it. We are committed, Rylan said, and the bond hummed with his certainty. Mara felt it too. Somewhere over the past weeks, her hatred had transmuted into something more complicated. Not love, not yet, but partnership, understanding, a grudging respect for how hard Rylan was working to earn back what he'd destroyed. Show them the transformation was worth it, Senna continued, that what you've become makes you stronger, not weaker, that their rejection was their loss. It was their loss, Mara said quietly. I'm just not sure they're capable of seeing that. Then make them see it. On the third day, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Mara and Rylan swam to the cliffs. Kaelion came too, a silent presence radiating ancient power. Senna stayed behind, though she'd wanted to come. This needed to be about Mara and Rylan, not about how many allies they could bring. The pack was already gathered when they arrived. Not just the leaders this time, but everyone. Wolves of all ages crowded the cliff top, their breath steaming in the freezing air. Mara could see children clinging to their parents, elders wrapped in threadbare blankets, warriors with weapons they wouldn't hesitate to use if things went wrong. Marcus stood at the front, flanked by his enforcers. He looked tired, older than his years. The weight of leadership in a failing pack had carved lines into his face that hadn't been there months ago. Mara and Rylan rose from the water together, moving in perfect synchronization. The bond between them was visible now, a faint shimmer in the air that connected them, that marked them as matched, as meant to be. The crowd gasped, murmured. Mara heard her name repeated over and over, heard Rylan's name mixed with disbelief and confusion. He's alive, someone whispered. What happened to him? He's like her now. Marcus raised his hand for silence. When he spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. You called this meeting. We're here. Talk. Thank you for coming, Ryland said, and his voice carried easily across the water. The new harmonics in it made it impossible to ignore, made it sound like the ocean itself was speaking. I know many of you thought I was dead, that Mara had killed me out of revenge. Didn't you? Someone shouted from the crowd. Transform him against his will? Make him into that? The bond transformed me, Ryland corrected. When Mara saved my life on these cliffs, when our blood mixed, it completed what should have happened during the calling. It made us true mates, and yes, it changed my body to match hers, but it wasn't her choice any more than it was mine. It was fate. Fate or curse? Marcus asked flatly. That depends on how you look at it. Ryland's tail moved in the water, powerful and deliberate. I lost my wolf, lost my ability to run on land, lost the pack I'd led for years. But I gained something too. Power over the ocean, the ability to command storms and currents, partnership with something ancient and vast. He gestured at Kalian, who remained a silent, imposing presence. I became something more than I was. You became a freak, Kara said from the crowd. Just like her. Mara felt Ryland's anger spike through the bond, but she squeezed his hand gently. Let me. Yes, she said, addressing Kara directly. I became different, strange, something that frightened you, and your response was to try to murder me, to throw me into the ocean and hope I die. She paused, letting that sink in. I didn't die. I survived. I adapted. I became powerful beyond anything you could imagine, and now you're all paying the price for that choice. We've paid enough, Marcus started, but Mara cut him off. Have you? Your fishing only succeeds because I allow it. Your storms are gentle because I make them so. Your water is clean because I keep it pure. Without my intervention, you'd all be dead already. You know this, I know this, so let's stop pretending this is anything other than what it is. You need me, desperately. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. No one contradicted her because they couldn't. It was obvious truth. So what do you want? Marcus asked. Complete control? Submission? What's the price for your continued mercy? I don't want your submission, Mara said. I want your acknowledgement. I want you to admit that throwing me away was wrong, that I deserved better, that the way you treated me, treated people like me, like my mother, was cruel and unjust. Silence. The kind of heavy, painful silence that comes when people are forced to confront their own cruelty. Then from the back of the crowd, a voice spoke up. An elderly woman, her face weathered by time. It was wrong. What we did to you. To your mother. I've known it for years and said nothing. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't feed us through the winter, Marcus said harshly. No, Mara agreed, but it's a start. Here's what I'm offering. Full alliance. Not as your servant or your threat, but as equals. Rylan and I will provide everything the ocean can give. Fish, protection, access to resources other packs don't have. In return, you provide what you've always provided. Territory, land resources, political connections. We become one pack, unified. With you as Alpha? Marcus's voice was sharp. With us as Alphas, Rylan corrected. Dual leadership. Marcus, you've been trying to hold this pack together with nothing but force and stubbornness. It's not working. You know it's not working. But you don't have to fail alone. Let us help. Help? Marcus laughed bitterly. You want me to just hand over power to the two people we tried to kill? We're not asking you to hand over anything, Mara said. We're asking you to share, to recognize that leadership isn't about dominance. It's about doing what's best for the pack. And right now, what's best is alliance with us. And if we refuse, Mara let the silence stretch. Then, deliberately, she raised one hand. The ocean responded instantly, the water level dropping several feet, revealing rocks that were usually submerged. Fish that had been schooling near the dock suddenly scattered, fleeing to deeper waters. The temperature of the air dropped noticeably as she pulled warmth from it. If you refuse, she said quietly, I take back what I've been giving you. The fish disappear. The storms return. The ocean becomes your enemy instead of your ally. You'll survive maybe 6 weeks into winter, maybe less. She lowered her hand, and everything returned to normal. Water level rising, fish returning, temperature stabilizing. A demonstration of power that left no room for doubt. That's not a choice, someone shouted. That's blackmail. It's reality. Kalian rumbled, speaking for the first time. His voice was like continental plates grinding together. The ocean belongs to her now. To them. You tried to kill its queen and she has been merciful beyond all reason. She offers you partnership when she could simply take what she wants. I suggest you accept. The crowd was fracturing. Mara could see it, some wolves nodding, seeing the logic. Others angry, resistant. Marcus himself looked torn, pride warring with pragmatism. Then Ryland spoke again, his voice softer now. Personal. I know what I did. I rejected Mara when she needed me most. I let fear make my decisions, and I've paid for that every single day since. My wolf is gone. My old life is gone. Everything I was, gone. He paused, and Mara felt his emotions through the bond, grief and regret and stubborn hope. But I've gained something too, a mate who's strong enough to survive anything, power I never dreamed of, a chance to build something new, something better, and I'm offering you the same chance, to build something better from the ashes of what we destroyed. Pretty words, Marcus said, but actions matter more. Prove you're not just here to take revenge. Prove this alliance is real. How? Mara asked. Marcus smiled, and it wasn't kind. Heal Kara. She's been sick for weeks, fever and cough that won't break. Our healer says she'll die within days without help we don't have. If you're really here to help the pack, not just control it, save her life. It was a test, an obvious one, but also a chance. Mara looked at Kara, who stood defiant despite the sickly pallor of her skin, despite the way she swayed on her feet. The woman who'd called her a freak, who'd stood by and watched her be thrown to her death. Every instinct screamed to refuse, to let Kara die the way they'd tried to let Mara die. But Ryland's hand tightened on hers, and through the bond she felt his quiet plea. This is the moment. This is where you choose who you become. Mara closed her eyes, took a breath, made her choice. Bring her to the water, she said. There was a flurry of activity. Kara was too weak to walk, so two wolves carried her to the dock, lowering her until her feet touched the water. She looked terrified, her eyes wide and fever-bright. I'm not going to hurt you, Mara said quietly. I'm going to help, but you need to trust me. Why? Kara's voice was hoarse. Why would you help me after? Because I'm better than you thought I was. Better than you treated me as. Mara reached out, her webbed hand gentle on Kara's burning forehead. And because someone needs to break this cycle of cruelty, might as well be me. She closed her eyes and reached for the ocean's power. She'd been learning from Kalian how to manipulate water on a molecular level, how to use it to heal instead of harm. It was delicate work, requiring precision and control she was still developing, but she had to try. The ocean responded to her call, flowing up and around Kara in a gentle cocoon. Mara could feel the sickness in her, an infection in her lungs, fever burning through her system. She sent the water deeper into Kara's lungs, filtering out the infection. Used the cold to bring down the fever. Infused healing minerals from the deep that accelerated recovery. It took minutes that felt like hours. Mara was dimly aware of the crowd watching in absolute silence, of Ryland's presence beside her, his power flowing through their bond to support her own. Finally, she opened her eyes and withdrew the water. Kara collapsed on the dock, gasping and coughing. But when she looked up, her eyes were clear. The fever was gone. It's... She touched her chest, her face amazed. I can breathe. It doesn't hurt. You'll need rest, Mara said, suddenly exhausted. And probably food. But you'll live. Kara stared at her, tears streaming down her face. Then, slowly, deliberately, she bowed her head. Thank you. I don't deserve... But thank you. No, Mara agreed. You don't deserve it. None of you do. But I'm giving it anyway. Because that's what actual strength looks like. Not throwing people away when they're inconvenient, but lifting them up even when they don't deserve it. She turned to address the whole pack, her voice carrying across the frozen cliff top. I was one of you. Born in this pack, raised in this territory. I wanted nothing more than to belong. And you threw me away because I was different, because I scared you, because you couldn't be bothered to understand what I was. Her eyes swept across the crowd, meeting gaze after gaze. I could destroy you for that. Could watch you starve and freeze and die, and it would be justice. Karmic balance, everything you deserve. She paused, letting the words sink in. But I'm not going to, because I'm not like you. I don't discard people when they're inconvenient. I don't murder people because they're different. I am offering you alliance, partnership, a chance to build something unprecedented, but only if you can admit what you did was wrong. Only if you can see me, really see me, as something other than a threat or a tool. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Marcus stepped forward. His face was conflicted, pride and pragmatism warring visibly. Finally, he spoke. What we did to you was wrong. I participated in it. I threw you off that cliff with my own hands, and His voice cracked slightly. I've regretted it every day since. You deserved better. Your mother deserved better. And if you're willing to look past that to work with us despite everything, then yes, I accept your alliance. He knelt. Actually knelt in the snow. I acknowledge you as Alpha, as Queen of the Ocean and rightful leader of this pack. Whatever authority I claimed, I give it to you and Rylan, together. Mara felt something crack inside her chest. Not painful, cleansing, like a wound that had finally started to drain. Around Marcus, other wolves were kneeling too. Not all of them, not yet, but enough. Enough to matter. The elderly woman who'd apologized first, a dozen younger wolves who'd never agreed with the execution, parents holding children, making the choice for a better future. Even Kara, still weak but determined, pressing her forehead to the dock. We acknowledge you, Kara said, her voice stronger now. We were wrong, and we're sorry. Mara looked at Rylan, and through their bond she felt his overwhelming pride in her. His love, open and unguarded. She'd done it. She'd won. Not through violence or revenge, but through being exactly what she'd always been. Strong enough to survive, compassionate enough to forgive, powerful enough to change everything. Then rise, she said, and her voice was thick with emotions she didn't bother to hide. Rise as members of a new pack, one that values strength and compassion, one that protects the different instead of destroying them, one that spans land and sea. They rose together, wolves and ocean-born, united for the first time. It wasn't perfect. There were still wolves who hung back, who didn't kneel, who watched with suspicious eyes. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but it was beginning. And that was enough. Over the following weeks, the transformation of the pack was dramatic. Mara and Rylan established a new order, dual leadership that honored both ocean and land. The trade that had been transactional became cooperative. Fishing improved beyond anyone's expectations. Storms became gentle rains. The harsh winter that should have killed them became survivable. Senna became their ambassador, the bridge between those who lived in the palace and those who remained on land. Her natural diplomacy and fierce loyalty made her invaluable. Kaelion remained in the deep, but he watched over them all with something that might have been pride. You've done what your mother couldn't, he told Mara one evening. Forced two worlds to coexist instead of being torn apart by them. It's not forced, Mara said. It's chosen. There's a difference. There is, and that makes it stronger. The pack thrived under the new order. Children who'd been weak from malnutrition grew strong. Elders who'd been dying found new purpose. Warriors who'd had nothing to fight for discovered they could be protectors of something unprecedented. And Mara finally felt like she belonged. Not because she'd made herself small enough to fit, but because she'd been powerful enough to reshape what belonging meant. Her relationship with Rylan deepened slowly. The bond between them was no longer a source of pain, but of strength. They learned to move together, to lead together, to exist as true partners. One night, several months after the alliance, they floated together in the palace's highest tower, watching stars ripple through the water above. "Do you forgive me?" Rylan asked quietly. "Really forgive me, not just tolerate me because we're bonded?" Mara thought about that, about the girl she'd been, desperate for acceptance, broken by rejection, transformed by survival. About the woman she'd become, powerful, decisive, capable of mercy and vengeance, both. "I'm getting there," she said honestly. "Forgiveness isn't a switch I can flip. It's something I have to choose every day. Some days are easier than others." "That's fair?" Rylan's hand found hers, their webbed fingers interlacing. "I'll spend every one of those days trying to earn it." "I know. That's why it's getting easier." They floated in comfortable silence, Two people who'd destroyed and rebuilt each other, who'd learned that sometimes the cruelest rejections led to the most powerful transformations. Above them, on the surface, the pack slept peacefully, protected by the ocean, led by those who'd survived its depths, united in ways they'd never imagined possible. Mara had been cast into the deep as an outcast, rejected and broken. She'd risen as a queen, and she'd proven that sometimes the things people throw away become the most valuable of all. The ocean whispered its approval in the currents. The stars watched through the water. And Mara Vane, who'd once been nothing and no one, smiled as she held the hand of her mate and surveyed the kingdom she'd built from her own survival. She'd lost everything, and in losing it, she'd gained the world. The story wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, conflicts to navigate, bridges to build between the worlds she'd united. But for now, in this moment, Mara let herself feel something she'd thought was lost forever. Peace. She was home. Finally, truly home. Not in a place, but in herself, in her power, in the love she'd found in the ashes of rejection. And the ocean, vast and ancient and hers to command, sang its approval into the endless dark.